Hello and welcome to Central Laos. For over the course of the next 4 days, I'm going to be over motorcycling throughout Central Laos, visiting caves 5 days. Now is one that's clearly much more developed, much closer to what you'd see not in Laos, to be honest. Which I was surprised this was here, but that being said, still built the couch in some spots. It is rather cool what they've done with these caves. They've turned this entire area in the middle of nowhere into kind of an amusement park area where they made it much more accessible to a lot of people to see these caves. Most of the caves in this area, 99% of them, are ones that you have to physically climb into with no steps and not much of a walkway either. So it is nice that they put some work into this one and made it easier for folks, older folks especially, to come and see this. A river runs through this cave. And they do have tours here where you can go in a small kayak and go all the way through, but a little bit out of my price range. for today. But this cave river goes much further than this, from what I heard. It's no joke, 20 degrees cooler in here than it is outside. I'm not looking forward to going back out there, but I gotta make it to my the place I'm staying at before it gets dark. So out I go. That is a giant boat on land. That is a very dry lake. Laos doesn't have an ocean connected to it. So all there is this very dry lake. I assume during the wet season it gets a little higher. That being said, this boat is definitely still beached at that time. But it is kind of cool to see a lake. Haven't really seen any in Thailand or Cambodia. Just in the area here in the east central part of Laos. There is a large lake with several small islands that pop throughout, so it must be a rather shallow lake. And I'll be riding through there, connecting from one island to the next on my way. Made to the top of the boat. It is very large. It must have been some sort of tourist boat, or at least one that takes people from one part of the lake to the other. That being said, I have no idea why they beached it. I'm guessing there had to be some damage, but it seems relatively new. It isn't too... the wood is solid. It isn't rotten or anything. But I'll show you a little more. It is kind of a trash pit. I'm sure all the teenagers come here and hang out. So everything gets thrown here and left. It's not like the government here is. It's not like the government is really gonna come and pick all this up. So kind of stays as is until eventually the chart gets to a point no one else can get here. Who doesn't love some communist propaganda? Me! These roads suck. There's a pothole that's a foot deep every 100 yards, and I'm trying to play some sort of jumping game from back and forth between each part of the road to not die. Get your act together. I'm not trying to die here. And this is the place for the night. Fan, boards, mosquito net. Bathroom. I can't complain. Not too bad. Well, good morning. It is beautiful morning of day 2. A lot more riding today, and we'll be stopping at quite a few more interesting spots. I'm heading to yet another cave. This entire area with these mountains is filled with caves. Only a couple of them are accessible by the public, like these, where you have to buy a ticket most of the times to enter, which isn't expensive. This one was like $2.50. But in Laos, especially, I'm not going to wander off the path with the amount of unexploded bombs that are still here from the secret war. You know, back when the North Vietnamese were using Laos and Cambodia as a transport way to bring weapons into South Vietnam, the US started bombing the routes, and a lot of those bombs didn't explode, and they're still here, and people are still getting affected by it today. But here is part of a cave slash temple. It's interesting going through these small villages where you can see where these Buddhas are made. Just off the side of the road, you can see people that are working on making more of these statues. Just a fresh wind of cool air is wonderful. Coming from the cave. I don't know how well you can see, but there's a bunch of fish. You can see there. They let you sell. You can buy fish food here and give it to the fish. I bet they're pretty much trained. The ceiling is so low. I have a duck through here. That's better. back to crouching. Oh, that opened up quick. Let's take a look over here. That's neat. This cave is known as Dragon Cave because supposedly there's a rock formation that looks like a dragon. I'm gonna guess I don't find it, but maybe. These formations are so cool. Not a big fan of that. Let's continue and see what's up here. Even higher. Let's see where it goes. I literally have no idea. And trying to get stung by a bee on the way. Well, I guess I'm going that way. I had no idea what's making that noise. I would guess a very large bug, but I don't want to stick around to find out. I don't want to fall down there. I know I'll be climbing this much when they said it was a cave. Well, I'm gonna put the camera down and get to the top. Okay, made it to the top. And here is the spectacular view. Not too bad. There's a couple fish. Finally made it back into the cave. The cool air is definitely refreshing. Well, that's the cave. Time to the next. That's the end of day 2. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. And I'm yet again in another cave with one guide. Beginning of day 3. This time I'm in luxury in a boat. A lot less crawling. My driver just dropped me off here. As he's currently bailing out water out of these wooden boats. We were flying down this large river. It's probably, I'm thinking probably a lot faster than what it actually was, but it seemed way too fast to go into a cave with a light that isn't very big. This is really cool. Whoa. Those towers are so cool. This is gonna be just a river boat cruise. I didn't realize how large this cave was and how many cool formations are gonna be inside of it. In this part of central Laos, all these karst formations occurred, and it left these gigantic caves in these mountains. This one has a gigantic river that flows right through it, so they take folks through it by boat, and that's the main source of income for this area. You may be thinking, oh, a private boat tour might be expensive. No, it was like $16 for a 2-hour boat trip to see all this. I can't complain one bit. Back to the boat. I've been quickly dropped off yet again to another spot, which looks like he's taken the boat around to a different location. Might have had been portage, but let's see where I'm going now. That's neat. Kind of looks like a mouth. It is very humid in this cave. Not nearly as cool as the one that I went to yesterday. Temperature-wise, at least. Doesn't help that I have to wear this life jacket. But this spot looks pretty cool. These pylons are so cool. I need to figure out some new adjectives to describe places like this. Watching my guide bail water out of the boat is very reassuring. I'm sure I'm fine. Hopefully. Gotta love wearing a life jacket in 2 inches of water. But here we go. We're stranded. I wish this camera could pick up half what I'm looking at. The bail while riding. Well, that's the end of the cave going this way. We're turning around the boat and going back the other way now. It's too shallow to go through here. I guess we are keeping on going. We're done. That was a really cool experience. And now we're heading back. No fun for me. I have to be safe. I can't ride down the rapid. No. Fine. I guess I'll be safe. officially made it to the end. I don't know if I ever mentioned, but this is Kong Lor Cave. Located, an hour drive south of Nahim, which, to everyone watching, which is probably like 5 people, doesn't mean anything, but for me to remember. I might have found another cave. What do you say? It's very hot outside. I don't feel like driving back in the middle of the day in this heat. So I'm gonna wander into this gigantic cave by myself. They gave me a flashlight. Hopefully it stays on. Hopefully. And see what this cave looks like. The last of the natural light is just up here. As soon as I turn the corner, my hope is in this one flashlight and whatever's left of my iPhone battery. But so far, it looks like it's solid. But walking on sand and pea gravel and stones isn't going to be the most fun. But let's see what's interesting. The inner child in me is like, there could be fossils anywhere. But knowing how these mountains are formed through magma that came up obviously out of the ground, it's not like it's sandstone where everything got compressed over time. So unless I'm completely wrong in thinking that, I wouldn't expect there to be any fossils down here. Just these really interesting formations that are very wavy. And there goes a spider. So, but another interesting thing while I'm down here is that it is completely quiet. Outside, a couple drops of water come from the ceiling, which you probably can't see all too well, but this thing is tall and wide. And this cave again is similar to the last, where during the rainy season, at least, there's a river that runs all the way through it, so it's pretty difficult to get yourself lost from what I've been hearing, from what I've heard. It's just that you don't want to get spun around. As long as you keep walking in the same direction, turn back and come back the other way, you'll be fine. But, and I'm the only person so far that I've heard or seen, but I think there's a couple more people in here just by the amount of bikes I've seen outside. But it is very cool to see. And another great positive, I don't have a guide for this one, so I can wander around for as long as I like, wherever I want, and it's only my responsibility, which is sometimes a good idea and sometimes not. Well, I've reached the point of no darkness. Well, I've reached the point of literal all darkness. That's what I'm looking at. That's better. I know this camera doesn't show it well, but this entire cave is humongous. And I have yet to hear a pin drop outside of a little bit of water falling. Like, it is eerily quiet. When I'm not moving. Well, that's that update. I will update again when I find something interesting. Well, more interesting. This is interesting. These formations are occurring all the way from up here. Not sure if you're able to see the water dropping, but there's a bunch of it. And now bugs are starting to swarm me, so I'm gonna keep moving before they keep on attacking me here. But I assume the further I go in, the less bugs will be around. Spiders, though, will still be plentiful. This is interesting. This part of the rock, this cave wall is broken apart into individual layers that are very defined. You can see the water must just flow probably out of here. And down the ground here. So many bugs. Here's some cool formations. There isn't too many in this cave, but you can see here the water is dripping down inside the cave, but coming from up here. Finding a flowering plant, or at least a leaf-bearing plant, is kind of strange when there's no light in the cave. It is starting to get a little bit closer together. So we'll see how much longer I go before I turn around. I did run into one other person. They said it gets muddier and skinnier up here, so we'll see. Well, I've gotten to the point in the cave where they started having elf shoots to different parts that are much smaller. So I've technically had to make about 2 or 3 decisions to keep with the larger cave. There isn't any signs in here at all pointing in the right direction, so cross my fingers that I'm heading in the right direction. I've been staying on the right side of the cave the entire time, so theoretically I'd turn around and walk on my other right back. That's how I would get back out, but it has gotten larger since the last time I recorded something, so we will see what it looks like up here. I found some standing water in here, this little tiny pond, and I've seen a couple small catfish in here. Let's see if I can find one. Right there, going underneath that rock. There's another one hidden in there. These catfish are maybe 4 inches long. Look like the same species. Let's see if I can find another over here. all hidden underneath rocks. Well, I made it to the river. This continues for several miles, I believe, but I am not going to get wet and attempt to swim in it. It looks like you could go across the edge and squirm your way around maybe for a little bit, but it's not worth it for me. It's too far of a cave anyways to go all the way through, so I'll turn back at this point. These bugs are terrible. The entire way the bugs have been bad. Now I'm swallowing them. But I will update you when I'm out. Finally made it out. I need some dinner and a drink of water. And then to bed. Before, there's gonna be a lot of riding. And hopefully a lot of views like this. I found this market off the side of the road. It has a little bit of everything, like most markets. If I didn't have a carry-on only, I would probably get one of those things. I'm not used to having a duck under everything. But here I am taller than the average person. Bye-bye.